He mocked my dreams at every family dinner. 7 years later, I became his company's secret owner. And the night he realized it, the room went silent. The smell of roasted rosemary and wine filled the dining room, but beneath it lingered something sharper: pride. Ethan sat across from me, the same smug grin that once told me I'd never make it, now flickering under candlelight. He didn't know yet. He didn't know that the new HR analytics system he'd been bragging about all evening, the one his company just adopted, carried my signature on every line of code. He didn't know that the woman he'd mocked, belittled, and dismissed as too emotional for business had just become his boss. But he was about to find out. And when he did, when the truth landed like a glass shattering across marble, the only sound left in the room was silence. I used to think success would sound like applause. Turns out, sometimes it sounds like silence, the kind that wraps around a room right before someone realizes how completely their world just flipped. For me, that silence happened at my sister's dining table on a night I almost skipped. But the road to that moment began 7 years earlier, when I was nothing more than the family disappointment with a laptop and a dream. Back then, Ethan, my brother-in-law, was already everything I wasn't. Sharp suit, new BMW, his name printed on company newsletters. He spoke in boardroom phrases, even at barbecues. Scalability, market traction, strategic outlook. The words meant little to the rest of us, but they made him sound important, and that was enough for my parents to treat him like he'd invented oxygen. I was the younger sister, the one who quit a stable accounting job to try tech. Monica, my older sister, called it my hobby whenever Ethan was around. He'd smile at me the way you smile at a toddler drawing on a wall, amused, superior, already waiting for the cleanup. The first jab came one Thanksgiving when Ethan asked, "So, how's your little app coming along, Alejandra? Found anyone willing to pay you to dream yet?" Laughter. Warm, cruel, casual. I smiled, swallowed, and said, "Not yet, but give me time." That night I sat awake, staring at code that refused to compile. Every line felt like a pulse of defiance. I didn't know what I was building, only that it had to matter, to me, to someone, to anyone willing to look past my family's smirks. Years blurred into deadlines. I freelanced to survive, writing scripts, automating payroll sheets for small shops, building databases for mom-and-pop bakeries. I learned what companies hated about people like me. Too small, too new, too female, too persistent. But I also learned what they needed: truthful data. Numbers that revealed where they were bleeding money, losing staff, or burying ethics under paperwork. That became my obsession. I called the project Aldratech. Half my name, half my anger. My apartment turned into a lab of caffeine, code, and unpaid electricity bills. I learned to patch servers with one hand and calm panic attacks with the other. Failure became a roommate I stopped arguing with. Then one small logistics firm signed up for my beta program. They cut costs by 18% in 3 months. Word spread. Suddenly, the girl with the laptop became the consultant who gets results. 3 years later, Aldratech had a team, an office, and a reputation for ethical automation, an odd phrase in a city where ethics usually cost extra. And then, inevitably, Ethan re-entered my orbit. He was now director of operations at a mid-tier corporation called Corling Solutions. His LinkedIn posts were full of quotes about leadership and nurturing innovation. I scrolled past them with polite disgust until one email from Corling hit my company inbox. Subject: Proposal request, HR automation suite integration from HR Department, Corling Solutions to Aldratech Systems, LLC. I reread it 3 times. They wanted us to streamline their internal analytics. My initials, AL, were on every document, but my full name wasn't. Ethan would have no idea. For 6 weeks, my team and I worked around the clock. The system we built, PulseTrack AI, monitored staff well-being, retention trends, and burnout signals. Ironically, it also exposed the kind of toxic management Ethan thrived under. When the pilot phase succeeded, Corling signed a multi-year contract worth more than I'd ever seen in my life. It should have been the end of the story. Quiet, clean, poetic. Then Monica called. "Family dinner this Saturday," she said, her tone too bright. "Ethan's promotion. Mom and Dad are coming. You will come, right?" Every instinct screamed no. But somewhere deep down, curiosity coiled like a spark. Would he still look at me the same way, the failure, the joke, if he knew? I texted back. Wouldn't miss it. Saturday evening, the Chicago skyline blushed gold as I drove toward the suburbs. My Tesla's dashboard reflected my face. Older, sharper, tired in ways success couldn't fix. I'd traded sleep for milestones, love for independence, and warmth for armor. Monica's neighborhood was postcard perfection. Manicured lawns, trimmed hedges, mailboxes that gleamed like ambition. I parked across the street and sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. "Tonight," I whispered. "You're not the girl they mocked." The door opened before I could knock. Monica's smile looked practiced, the kind you wear to cover guilt. "You look amazing," she said, stepping back. "So do you." I lied gently. The house smelled of cinnamon and anxiety. In the dining room, Ethan stood near the table, swirling wine like it owed him answers. His navy suit probably cost more than my first laptop. He turned, grin sliding into place. "Alejandra."
Wow.
"It's been what, 2 years?" "3, I said. "Congratulations on the promotion." He chuckled. "Thank you. Director of Operations, finally. It feels good to have things under control." Under control. He had no idea how ironic that sounded. We sat, parents on one side, Monica between us like a peace treaty that knew it would fail. Conversation tiptoed between small talk and self-congratulation. Ethan's stories filled the air, how he'd rescued projects, mentored juniors, optimized workflows. He was performing, as always, for an audience that never asked for the encore. When he finally paused, he looked at me. "So, Alejandra, still doing that tech thing?" "That tech thing's keeping me busy," I said, reaching for water. Good, good. Must be nice working freelance. Less pressure." He smiled. "Of course, there's a ceiling to that kind of work. Some of us need bigger challenges." Monica kicked him under the table. I saw it, and for the first time in years, I enjoyed watching him flinch. Dinner arrived, roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, conversation reheated from old wounds. My father asked about my little business. I answered simply. My mother, ever polite, changed the subject to Ethan's promotion again. It was his show, after all. But fate, or poetic justice, had its own script. Halfway through dessert, Ethan's phone buzzed. He frowned, thumbed through a few messages, then laughed. "Sorry, work stuff. Monday's rollout is killing me." "What rollout?" my father asked. "Oh, new analytics software," Ethan said. "We contracted an outside firm, Aldratech, some hotshot tech company." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. I waited. "Supposedly, their system will transform how we track retention," Ethan continued. "The CEO's initials RAL. Never met the person, but they're apparently a genius. I'll believe it when I see the results." Monica blinked, suspicious.
Yell?
"As in?" I looked up. "Alejandra Lopez," I said softly. "My full name." Ethan's laughter faltered. "Come again?" "I own Aldratech," I said. "The firm your company hired. I designed your rollout." The table went utterly still. The only movement came from the candle's flicker reflecting in his glass. Monica's jaw parted slightly. My parents stared, unsure whether to be proud or terrified. Ethan's throat worked, but no words came out. His face shifted, confusion, disbelief, something like panic. I leaned back, savoring the silence that finally respected me. "Congratulations on your promotion," I said. "Looks like we'll be working together." The clock ticked twice before he answered, voice brittle.
Well.
Small world. Smaller than you think. For a heartbeat, the only sound in the room was the soft crackle of the candles. Then the tension rearranged itself, like air after thunder. You could feel it, sharp, electric, searching for somewhere to land. Ethan cleared his throat first. "So, you're the one who built the system?" His tone tried for casual. It landed somewhere near panic. I nodded. From the ground up. I hope the rollout goes smoothly Monday. A smile ghosted my lips, polite and merciless. My mother broke the silence. Alejandra, that's wonderful news. She sounded both impressed and nervous, as if praising me might ignite something in Ethan. My father, usually wordless, managed, well, looks like our girl did fine after all. Ethan's fork scraped the plate too hard. Of course she did, he said, voice flat. Good for her. The dinner limped forward for another 15 minutes. Empty sentences, brittle laughter, Monica's desperate attempts to steer conversation toward the weather, the dog, anything but me. I let it die its slow death. When the plates were cleared, I stood. Thank you for dinner, Monica. The food was great. My sister's eyes pleaded don't leave like this, but I was done performing. I smiled, kissed her cheek, and walked out into the quiet night. The cold hit like clarity. November wind sweeping the driveway, stinging my cheeks. Inside the car, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. My reflection in the rearview mirror smiled back, tired, triumphant, a little sad. For years I'd imagined that moment, the look on Ethan's face when he realized I wasn't a failure. I thought it would taste sweet. Instead, it felt like whiskey, burning going down, leaving a heat that wouldn't fade. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Monica. I ignored it. Then again, please don't be mad. He didn't mean to sound cruel. A third message followed. He just needs time to process.
Process.
Funny words. In tech, processing meant something was still running, consuming energy until it produced an output. Ethan was processing humiliation, and it would eat him alive before he could spit it back as revenge. I knew him well enough to be certain of that. By the time Monday rolled around, the story had already made its way through the office grapevine. My lead engineer, Priya, looked up from her screen as I walked in. So, is the rumor true? Corelink's director is your brother-in-law. I chuckled.
Was.
Now he's just a client.
She grinned.
That's colder than code. The rollout went perfectly. No glitches, no server overload, no excuses. Corelink's HR metrics stabilized within 48 hours. My inbox flooded with excellent work emails from Ethan's subordinates. Not from Ethan. That silence was better than praise. But I knew men like him. The ones who built their ego in comparison. The idea that I had outgrown the box he'd shoved me into would eat away at the foundation he'd built his identity on. Which meant he'd eventually come for me, quietly, strategically. I decided to be ready. 3 weeks later, it arrived. Subject: concern regarding data access privileges from Ethan Cole, Director of Operations, Corelink, to Alder Tech Systems. Corporate politeness barely hid the accusation between the lines. He was implying my team had too much access to their internal data, standard permissions, clearly outlined in the contract he'd approved himself. I drafted a measured reply, copied legal, and attached every signed clause. The kind of email that kills with professionalism. Mr. Cole, as per Section 4.2, Aldertech retains temporary access for system calibration until January 31st. If you require further clarification, I'd be happy to discuss during our scheduled performance review next week. Alejandra Lopez, CEO, Aldertech Systems, LLC. He replied within an hour. No need. Just ensuring protocols are followed. Translation: I tried to find dirt. There isn't any. But I wasn't naive. This was round one. Corelink's downtown headquarters was all glass and ego, floor-to-ceiling transparency masking closed-door politics. I arrived 15 minutes early, heels echoing through the marble lobby. Receptionists glanced up, whispering. They knew who I was. When Ethan entered the conference room, he looked impeccable, but something in his posture had shifted. A stiffness around the shoulders, a tightness in the jaw. He shook my hand. Alejandra. Director Cole. He sat opposite me, laptop open, pretending to review notes. I just wanted to ensure our partnership remains mutually beneficial. Of course. I smiled. Aldrateka's only interest is in improving your company's efficiency and ethics. Both seem to be trending upward. He didn't like that word, ethics. His pen tapped against the notepad. Some of the staff are uncomfortable with how the system tracks their performance.
That's odd, I said.
Feedback surveys show a 92% satisfaction rate, unless you're referring to managers uncomfortable with accountability. He looked up sharply. Watch your tone. I leaned forward. You contacted me, Ethan. Don't forget that. For a moment, silence again, like that night at dinner. Then he smiled, thin and venomous. Just remember, family or not, CoreLink doesn't tolerate overreach. Neither do I. The meeting ended without a handshake. That night Monica called again. Her voice trembled. What happened at the office? Ethan came home furious. He tried to intimidate me, I said simply. It didn't work. Please, she whispered, don't make this worse. I wanted to tell her it was already worse. The day she married him, the day he learned that humiliation was easier than humility. But I bit it back. She loved him. Maybe out of habit, maybe out of fear. Tell him, I said instead, that he picked this fight. I'm just finishing it. 2 weeks later, an anonymous complaint surfaced on a tech forum accusing Aldrateka of data manipulation. It was vague, baseless, and timed perfectly to coincide with our next investor review. I didn't need to guess who started it. My PR team neutralized the rumor within hours, but the message was clear. Ethan was done pretending. He wanted war. So I gave him something to lose. I requested an internal audit of CoreLink's usage reports, routine, by contract. The data revealed what I suspected. Certain performance evaluations were being edited manually after submission. The metadata traced back to Ethan's credentials. When my compliance officer presented the findings, I told her to forward them not to HR but to the board, confidentially, of course. By Friday, an emergency meeting was scheduled at CoreLink. By Monday, Ethan's promotion had been temporarily suspended pending investigation. And by Tuesday, my phone rang again. Are you proud of yourself? His voice hissed through the receiver, low and dangerous. I'm proud of the truth, I said. You ruined my career.
No, Ethan.
You ruined it when you falsified records. You think you're untouchable because you own a startup? You're nothing without contracts like ours. I smiled, unseen. Then you should have read yours more carefully. Termination of partnership voids all software licenses. Without Aldrateka, your entire HR system shuts down. He went silent. I could almost hear him doing the math. Lost data, downtime, costs. Finally he said, You'll regret this. Maybe, I said. But you'll remember it. And I hung up. That night, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving since my first investment closed. I poured a glass, sat by the window, and let the city lights burn like tiny promises below. Monica texted once more. He's suspended. He blames you.
Please just stop.
I typed and deleted my reply 3 times before settling on one sentence. I stopped years ago. He's the one still running. Then I muted the thread. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. 2 months later, my parents invited everyone to Christmas Eve dinner. I almost said no again, but curiosity, that old accomplice, whispered. One last look. Ethan showed up late, thinner, quieter. The board hadn't fired him yet, but his reputation was ash. When I entered, conversations halted, not from shock this time, but respect. Even Ethan managed a nod. No arrogance, no words. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the game was over. We ate. We laughed a little. Normalcy returned. Awkward but real. As dessert arrived, I caught Ethan glancing at me, eyes full of something new. Not hate, not pride, maybe recognition. He lifted his glass slightly. To lessons learned, he said. I raised mine. To accountability. The family dinner went silent again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was peaceful. Because revenge, when done right, doesn't end with destruction. It ends with silence, and the echo of your own power. The funny thing about revenge is how quiet life becomes once it's over. No cheers, no violins, just an unfamiliar stillness, like the world holding its breath, unsure what to do with the absence of noise. After Ethan's suspension, I expected chaos. Instead, there was paperwork, lawyers, statements, a cold, methodical dismantling of the man who once dismantled me with a single smirk. CoreLink's board thanked Aldratech for its commitment to transparency. Translation: Thank you for giving us a reason to clean the house without blood on our hands. Ethan was placed on indefinite leave. Monica stopped coming to family brunches. And I, somehow, became the woman everyone suddenly wanted to know. 2 weeks later, invitations poured in. Podcasts, conferences, women in tech panels. My assistant filtered half of them, but one name made me pause. Marianne Voss, senior partner at the venture capital giant Stonebridge Capital. We met at a rooftop bar overlooking the frozen Chicago River. She was late by 10 minutes, a deliberate power move. I let her find me already relaxed, glass of Pinot in hand, skyline behind me like armor. Ms. Lopez, she said, shaking my hand. Quite a year you've had. Eventful, I replied, but productive. She smiled thinly. Stonebridge is expanding our ethics and AI portfolio. We think Aldratech could anchor that initiative. I leaned back. You mean by us? She didn't flinch. Partner. Majority stake, retained control. You'd stay as CEO. Numbers danced on napkins. Offers whispered between sips of wine. When she left, the table smelled of ambition and winter perfume. Her proposal would triple Aldratech's value overnight. It would also mean surrendering control, the very thing I'd fought Ethan for. That night I stood by my apartment window, city lights flickering like binary code. Freedom or power. They sounded the same until you had to choose between them. She hadn't called since Christmas. Her voice, when it came, was softer, tired. I wanted to let you know Ethan's looking for work, she said. He's not doing well. I waited. She hesitated. He's been drinking. He says you ruined him. I revealed him, I said. You think that's different? Yes. Silence stretched. Then she whispered, he keeps asking why you did it. I wanted to say because he deserved it, but something in her tone stopped me. So I said the truth that hurt more. Because he made me small for years, and I let him. I needed to prove I was what he said. You proved it, she said. But what did it cost? When the call ended, I stared at my reflection in the black glass of the window. Success looked like solitude in expensive clothes. January brought meetings, investors, and numbers with too many zeros. Aldratech's reputation skyrocketed. The ethics angle drew attention from European regulators. Journalists called me the conscience of corporate automation. It was flattering and exhausting. Every headline about my integrity felt like a dare to stay pure. That's the curse of revenge. Once you've proven you can destroy someone, people start to wonder who you'll destroy next. My CFO, Daniel, noticed it first. You're running on fumes, he said one evening. You need to delegate. I can't. Not yet. Still chasing ghosts. I looked at him, a steady, kind face framed by worry. Do you ever get the feeling that if you stop running, everything you built will disappear? He smiled sadly. Only every day. In February, CoreLink's HR had requested a follow-up audit, unofficially. She sounded nervous, like someone expecting retaliation from above. Off the record, she said, Ethan's trying to appeal his suspension. He claims your system flagged false positives to target him. I almost laughed. False positives don't edit spreadsheets at 2 a.m. under his login credentials. Still, the thought unsettled me. If he was desperate enough to fabricate a defense, he was desperate enough for anything. 2 nights later, my security chief pinged me. Unusual access attempts detected. Remote IP traced to suburban network. Ethan's suburb. I tightened data protocols, froze external logins, and set the legal team on standby. It wasn't fear I felt. It was disappointment. The realization that even stripped of power, he still needed me to lose for him to feel equal. Stonebridge Capital invited me to their winter gala, a masquerade at the Old Field Museum. It felt like stepping into a Roman myth. Marble, champagne, masks hiding ambition. Marian Voss found me near the fossils. Still thinking about the offer? Still thinking about the price. She tilted her head. Control is an illusion, Alejandra. Every empire becomes someone else's investment eventually. Maybe, I said. But mine isn't finished being built. She smiled, admiring the defiance. Then don't build it alone. That's how you burn out. I didn't answer. Because somewhere across the room, behind a black mask, I'd just seen a profile I knew too well, Ethan's. For a heartbeat, I thought I was imagining it. But then he turned, eyes meeting mine, and I knew. He shouldn't have been there. He approached slowly, confident again, as if the months of disgrace had evaporated under cologne and tailored fabric. Fancy seeing you here, he said, voice too calm. You're not invited. He smirked. Networking. Stonebridge funds Corelink's recovery. I still have friends. So, you're stalking me through sponsors now? I came to congratulate you. Really? You won. He leaned closer. But you made enemies in the process. Careful they don't do to you what you did to me. His breath smelled of whiskey and bitterness. I stepped back. You ruined yourself. Don't project your crash onto me. He smiled thinly.
Maybe.
But remember, every system can be hacked, even yours. Then he melted into the crowd, leaving perfume and thread in his wake. 3 days later it happened. At 3:07 a.m., Aldrateka's monitoring system flagged a massive data dump attempt from an internal account. The culprit used encrypted proxies, but digital fingerprints never lie. It was Ethan or someone working for him. By dawn, our servers were secure, breach contained. But one confidential file had been copied, the Stonebridge negotiation draft. When the news broke, it wasn't about the theft. It was about the leak. Aldrateka in talks to sell majority stake. Investors panicked. Competitors circled. Ethan didn't need to destroy my company. He just needed to make people doubt me the way he once made me doubt myself. For the first time since Christmas, I felt fear, not of losing wealth, but of becoming him. That evening I sat on the same balcony where I'd once toasted revenge. Below me, the river shimmered black, full of secrets and reflections. I remembered Monica's question. What did it cost? The answer sat heavy in my chest. Revenge had given me power, but it had also built a mirror. One that showed me Ethan's reflection every time I stared too long at my own ruthlessness. Priya knocked softly. We traced the breach. I know who it is. What will you do? I looked out at the skyline. Nothing yet. Sometimes silence is louder than retaliation. The day after the breach felt like standing in the eye of a storm, calm on the surface, chaos circling somewhere just out of sight. News outlets buzzed with half-truths. Analysts speculated that Aldrateka had sold out to corporate vultures. My inbox was a graveyard of investor demands. By noon, the board demanded a meeting. They gathered in the glass-walled conference room like judges, waiting for a confession. Marianne Voss joined by video link, her image crisp and unforgiving. Ms. Lopez, she began, Stonebridge cannot proceed with acquisition talks under current instability. You have 48 hours to demonstrate control of your company. Control. That word again. The ghost of every sleepless night, every choice I'd made since the day Ethan tried to bury me. Daniel looked at me from the corner, his eyes asking the question the board wouldn't. Can you still lead this company without becoming what you fought against? I drew a breath. You'll have stability within 24 hours. I guarantee it. It was a promise I had no idea how to keep, yet. That evening, Monica appeared at my office unannounced. She looked smaller than I remembered, wrapped in a beige coat that swallowed her. Her fingers twisted around a worn leather purse. I had to see you, she said. Ethan's not well. I gestured for her to sit, but she remained standing. He told me what he did. The breach, the leak. He thought it would humiliate you like you humiliated him. I didn't humiliate him, I said quietly. I exposed him. I know, she whispered. But he can't live with it. He thinks if he ruins you, the pain will stop. She handed me an old envelope. Inside were screenshots, his messages to a contact offering stolen data to a rival firm.
He's unraveling, she said.
Please don't press charges. Let me help him. For a long time I said nothing. The part of me that had once burned for revenge felt tired. I'd already won. But victory without mercy was starting to look a lot like Ethan's legacy. I won't go after him, I said at last. But he has to stay out of my world. Tears slipped down her cheek. Thank you. As she left, I realized something startling. I no longer hated her. I pitied her. And, somewhere deep beneath the armor, I pitied him too. At 2 a.m., Daniel found me still in the office, surrounded by the hum of server fans and city neon bleeding through the blinds. I have a solution, he said. Stonebridge is pulling out, but we can take them off the table entirely. He placed a folder before me. Employee buyout plan. Every department head, every engineer, every analyst would own a share of Aldratech. Distributed power, incorruptible loyalty. It'll make you less rich, Daniel said, but untouchable. I smiled. You sound like you rehearsed that. He shrugged. I know you, Alejandra. You didn't build this to sell it. You built it so no one could ever make you feel small again. The decision took seconds. Let's do it. By the deadline, Aldratech had gone public with the buyout plan. The announcement detonated across media channels. Aldratech becomes employee-owned. CEO rejects billion-dollar buyout. Stockholders erupted, first in confusion, then in applause. Workers flooded Slack with emojis, some crying in the lobby when the news broke. Marian Voss called me that evening. Bold move, she said coolly. You gave away your fortune. I redistributed it, I replied. Control was never the goal. Freedom was. There was a pause, a small, grudging smile in her voice. You'll make enemies. I already did. And I ended the call. 2 weeks later, my mother insisted on a family dinner. Everyone needs closure, she said. Everyone. Meaning Monica. Meaning Ethan. I almost refused, but something inside me whispered. Go. Closure isn't given, it's claimed. The restaurant was the same one where Ethan once mocked my first promotion. Now I arrived early, wearing quiet confidence instead of armor. When they entered, Ethan looked nothing like the man I'd last seen. His hair was shorter, his shoulders slumped. The arrogance had drained from his eyes, leaving something raw behind. He nodded to me barely. Alejandra.
Ethan.
For 10 long seconds, no one spoke. Then my mother, bless her diplomatic soul, broke the silence with forced cheer. Well, this is nice. Everyone is together again. No one believed her. Finally, Ethan spoke. I saw the buyout announcement. Congratulations. I met his gaze. I didn't do it for congratulations. I know. He shifted in his chair. Read the reports. You could have buried me after the leak. I could have, I said. But then I'd be you. His eyes flicked up, a flicker of something like shame. I never meant for it to go that far. I just wanted you to lose once. You already made sure I did years ago. But here's the difference. I learned from it. You never did. He swallowed hard. What now? Now we eat dinner. Like family. Quietly. He gave a small, broken laugh. You really did win. No, I said softly. I finally stopped fighting. The table fell into an uneasy peace. The clink of cutlery filled the spaces where words failed. For the first time, I saw Ethan not as an enemy, but as a cautionary tale, the proof of what happens when ambition corrodes into resentment. When the check arrived, I reached for it.
He tried to protest. Don't, I said.
You've paid enough. His hand trembled slightly as he nodded. Weeks passed. Corlink announced internal reforms. Ethan entered a rehabilitation program. Monica wrote to say he was getting better, slowly, painfully. Aldratech thrived under the new ownership model. Productivity soared. Loyalty deepened. For once, profit and peace didn't feel mutually exclusive. Every morning I still woke before dawn, brewed my coffee, and stood by the same window where I'd once plotted vengeance. The skyline hadn't changed, but I had. The city lights no longer looked like binary code or battlegrounds. They looked like possibilities. One evening, a courier arrived with a small envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper in Ethan's handwriting. Alejandra, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to thank you for not finishing me when you could. You were right. Revenge doesn't end things, it chains you to them. I'm learning to live without chains. Ethan. I folded the letter, placed it in my drawer beside the first prototype sketch of Aldratech's system. The two belonged together. The reminder of where I began, and the proof of how far I'd come. That weekend, the Aldratech team gathered on the rooftop terrace for our first employee shareholders celebration. Music drifted through the evening air, laughter spilling like champagne. Daniel raised a glass. To Alejandra for teaching us that ethics isn't the opposite of ambition. I laughed. To all of us for proving that revenge stories can end with redemption. As the crowd cheered, I stepped aside, letting the city wind wash through my hair. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking back. The noise of vengeance had faded, replaced by the hum of creation, of something honest and alive. Beneath the skyline, the world kept turning, indifferent, magnificent, full of second chances. And I whispered to it, half smiling. Revenge was just the beginning.